You are now watching the official YouTube channel for the largest basketball manager game in the world. Join at BuzzerBeater.com if you think you can beat the buzzer.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Bubble's BuzzerBeater, the official BuzzerBeater YouTube channel. I wanted to discuss a feature that's new to Season 63, and that is the pickup games. So for the pickup games, I know there is a lot of requests and a lot of managers mentioning for seasons past how they wanted more games throughout the week, and BuzzerBeater did not disappoint when they added this new feature or these new games. So in this video, I just wanted to discuss what are pickup games and how do you schedule them, as well as little nuances about them and just how they work, essentially. So you could see that for the main news post for Season 63, it was labeled as Pick Up the Pace, and you can go ahead and read this, as many of you might have already done. But essentially, these pickup games are meant to be like practice matches so that you can test out different tactics and different lineups, and eventually, improve your system for league games and Buzzer Beater Madness games, and essentially just having a way to test out things with your team that doesn't impact your minutes or your training or anything like that. So essentially, the games on the menu are the ones that you'll see in blue, and they work similarly to how you can schedule a scrimmage. But the caveat with them is that not everyone can see them. So they're essentially like private, where only you can see them, and that's a big benefit for if you do want to test out different stuff. So essentially the way that they work is you get tokens. So you'll see that on this example, my team currently has 2 available tokens, and you can arrange the pickup games by spending 1 token, and you can schedule them with either a bot, where there's 4 different levels of bots that you can play against, or you can offer out a invitation to any other manager on BuzzerBeater and schedule it with a opponent that's not a bot as well. And where you'd find this at is just under the scrimmages tab. If you click into there, there's a section that talks about the pickup games, and then you'll see under the current offers, there's the pickup game section as well. Other cool thing about this is that you can actually schedule a pickup game like 5, 10, 15 minutes in the future, so you don't have to wait and schedule it like a day out or even a couple hours out. I've scheduled pickup games, I think like 10 or 12 minutes in advance, and it was just like, hey, who wants to play a pickup game? Someone's like, I do, and then you can send it out and book it right away. So really nifty there. You are also able to set lineups like later on in the cycle. So I know for league games, you have that 15-minute buffer. That buffer is not nearly as big for these games. So you can set those up really easily, and then as long as you have available tokens, you can send those offers out, and you only use a token, I believe, when you are the one sending out the invitation. So if you use a token and then someone else sends you an invitation for a pickup game, by accepting theirs, you are not using up a token, which is nice. As I mentioned, pickup games are not viewable by other teams, so you can test out tactics and lineups without fear of like giving away information, or like if you want to run a pickup game or two to test out a couple different offenses before an important league game, you can do that, and other people cannot view it. So essentially, the right-hand side, you can see my schedule where I ran like a ton of different pickup games, lost a lot of them, but you can see the history of pickup games. That's what shows up on my team's schedule. However, if you're viewing the schedule from someone else's viewpoint, or if you're looking at other managers' schedule, those pickup games will not show up. So you can see on the bottom, this is what it would look like for someone who is not the owner of the team that you're looking at, where those pickup games don't show up. It's just the very next game in the sequence that shows up. And then other good thing about this is all pickup games are played with 8 enthusiasm, and this can be shown whenever you're scheduling any game now. There's the enthusiasm listed, but then there's also the used for this match. So every single pickup game is played with 8 8 Enthusiasm. So it's kind of like BuzzerBeater Madness or B3 games, where all of those are played with 12 Enthusiasm. This is more of a standard Enthusiasm, though, of 8, so it's more balanced across the board, and I think it gives a really good representation of how effective things are for most games. And other thing is, as I mentioned, pickup games do not impact essentially anything for your league structure, anything for your team, anything for your economics. It's very much just a free game to test out tactics, test out lineups, and see how things work. So it doesn't impact weekly minutes for game shape, training minutes, enthusiasm. As I mentioned, it's at that set enthusiasm, league standings or country world rankings, team economics, injuries. None of this comes into play with pickup games. So if a player gets hurt in one, they're not going to be injured for any league games or anything else. Those injuries just disappear as well. And then just some fun facts or some things that I tested out when it first happened that very first day on December 3rd. Managers were originally able to schedule pickup games at the exact same time. And this was an interesting one because I scheduled, 2 pickup games with Antoine at the exact same time, exact same tactics, just to see what the RNG looks like, or the random number generator, essentially like how BuzzerBeater game engine can be different depending on that specific matchup and how they vary every single time. But if you ran a pickup match against the same team with the same tactics at the exact same time, essentially it caused the randomness to be used for both games to be the exact same. So they were like identical games essentially, since they were simulated in the same batch. However, we did run one after with the same exact tactics, same exact lineup, same exact teams, and you can see that the scores varied slightly. And then it is something that has been fixed where teams can no longer schedule pickup games at the exact same time against the same opponent, so you don't have to worry about running into this issue either. And then you can see that even games that are scheduled 5 minutes apart, so I played BB Justin in 2 games at 2:50 p.m. and 2:55 p.m., the games were very similar, but the scores were different, and the play-by-play and box scores were entirely different as well. And then, that essentially just proves that the games will be impacted by RNG or random number generator now, even if the tactics are identical for both teams. So you can kind of run, if you wanted to test out a tactic and run it more than once, you can always pick a opponent, play with them 2 or 3 times, spread out by like 5 or 10 minutes per game, and that would give you a good idea of not just how it performs once, but also like in multiple runs of that same setup. And now for the bots, I just wanted to go through the bot pickup games and just kind of give a breakdown of how strong these bot teams are, what their roster setups look like, and then that can help you kind of set up a pickup game with a bot to give you a better idea of what you'd be setting yourself up against. So for the easiest bot, you'll see Dribble Dazzle right here. And the easy bot was labeled as challenging only for new teams, which makes sense because their top 10 players are roughly just a 50K combined salary. So it's very much a lot of $3,000, $4,000 salary per week players. And then their 3 best players are the 3 listed here. So they have that 7.9K point guard, 6.3K shooting guard, and then a 5.0K power forward. Everyone else is below those salary marks, so you can tell it's not like a very strong team. If you've been on BuzzerBeater for even past a season or 2, this is likely not going to be like a pickup game that's like challenging for you or very useful. I did end up playing them once with my USA team, though, and you can see the score 118-32. So I definitely kicked the crap out of them, but the easiest bot is definitely quote-unquote easy, like very, very easy. Then you have the medium bot option, where the medium bot team is listed as challenging for experienced teams. And I think by experience, it just means like if you've been on BuzzerBeater for a couple seasons, if you kind of have a good grasp of how tactics and teams work, and if you're like in a established Division 3 league, or if you're in a tougher Division 4 league or something, then typically this team's going to be a little bit easier for you. But I'd say for brand new teams, this is probably a little bit of a tougher team. So you can see the triple threat Tornadoes right there. Their three best players. You got the 24.7K power forward, the 23.6K small forward, and a 22.9K center. Their team salary is roughly 200K if you wanted to gauge it based on like what is your team salary, how do you weigh up against them. Their top 10 players, 200K salary combined. But for my Division 2 USA team, you can see that it was still a pretty easy game where I won 113-71. So it's definitely a step up from a 50K rotation up to about 200K, but still not super challenging for where my team is at. Then you have the tough, or the challenging for top tier teams, and this is going to be not the hardest bot team, but the second hardest. And their top 10 players, roughly 500K combined salary. I will say that their salaries are pretty balanced across their top guy compared down to like their 10th through 12th guy. I'd say it's a lot of like 30 to 40 salary players, but their best three players right there. You can see Roberto Del Vigo, a 63.9K center, and then Zoltan and Anton as 57K players as well. This was a pretty significant step up just because it's a roughly 500K combined salary. And I'd say the team's actually not as strong as what the 500K salary might entail just because the starters aren't super strong. It's more across the team is very balanced and high salaries. My Division 2 team that has, I'd say like a 300 or 350K team salary, they still beat this team 94-74, so definitely a little bit weaker than you might anticipate, but still a good kind of pickup game against a bot. And then for the last one, you have the impossible challenging even for B3 winners. And I know that there's been a couple managers that have beaten this bot team or the impossible bot team, but a lot of those come when their best player, the Alley-Oop All-Stars best player that is, isn't playing. So you can see the top 10 players is listed at roughly 1.75 million combined salary. And then their best three players, the Joe Bronson Jr. Joe Bronson's like a USA BuzzerBeater legend. But Joe Bronson Jr. is a $476,000 point guard. And I will actually be making a video that shows off his skills and just kind of breaking down what he looks like. But he is by far the best player in BuzzerBeater. That's just a kind of a cheat code for this impossible bot team. And then you can see Rod Fawaz at 312K salary and Naughton Decloy at 246,000. So they have really, really good players on there. This was the team that did actually kick the crap out of me, where you can see 130-88 is what I lost the game by. So this was the team that I'd say was very, very difficult to play against. I feel like a bot team could be added potentially between this last team, the tough, and this impossible. I think one more team could be added in there to make it a little bit more balanced between the two, because I've won the tough bot game by 20 and then lost this one like significantly by 42. So the jump up from the tough to the impossible is definitely noticeable. So I think one more bot team option between those two could be a nice thing to get added at some point, but it's definitely still cool to see how my guys stacked up against the impossible bot team. So those are what pickup games are and how they work, how you can schedule one. But what are you planning on testing out during pickup games? I know a lot of people just want to see different tactics. I'm always interested to test out like minutes for different blanked lineups, so that's something that I've been using that for. But what do you want to test on these games, and what are your thoughts on this new feature for Season 63?